is up, y'all? It is me, Tasha C, and welcome to the Tasha C Show. Shout out to my YouTube and podcast fam who have been supporting me, Hugs and Loves, and Shield Protection. Also, I want to say hugs and loves for the people who will show me support in the future, near future. I appreciate it. This is not going to be a long intro, but this is another volume of our Kings and Queens, where I talk about random facts, sometimes random or different things about Black history. And so today I have my timer set because, y'all, it was an article I read. Actually, I got this from last night. Originally, I would have did it early this morning, but I was asleep, y'all. Thank God, actually, because it was it was one of those times, usually I've been doing the night out stuff, and then it switches. So, last night, I was like, it's time. Night, go to sleep. So, today, I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's 10:31 a.m. It is April the 6th, Monday at 10:32 a.m. So, this, like I said, this is volume 66 of our Kings and Queens Next Door. So, I seen this last night on Instagram about a beautiful sculpture. It looks like, of a black family. And I wanted to know the history behind it. I looked for Instagram where they were like, they tag this person and tag this person. So it turns out it is called the African Renaissance Monument. And depending on how long this takes, I don't think it's as long as, the Nina Simone one. If y'all listen to podcasts, which I had to split due to it being an article longer than what I thought. But this time I'm like, let me at least put the timer on for 40 minutes. So anyway, this is from wonderwisdom.com, and it's, I guess, a travel definition from Africa, and it's called African Renaissance Monument, updated March 29, 2018, by Ryan Thomas, who is the author of this. Okay, let's get started. The African Renaissance Monument was built in 2010, opening on April the 4th, and is a statue symbolizing rebirth of Africa, and commemorating Senegalese independence. Construction on the Melis Hill, which adds 100 meters to its already 49-meter height, it presents a commemoration of traditional African culture and heritage, both Africa and abroad. Huge, colossal, really at summit, 22,000 tons and built of shining bronze. It is the largest statue of Africa and is certainly a major site for Darkler, quite often visited for its observation of deck with view from Darkler. If you happen to be going to Darkler, it probably be one of the places to go. Well, probably near future, y'all, because y'all know what's going on now. But let me continue. Okay. The trip to the African Renaissance Monument. The main entrance to the monument, like the Renaissance African, is up in a huge flight of stairs after arriving at a parking lot. The bottom has some good and, by foreigner standards, not so too expensive restaurant and some Senegalese craft stores around. Plus, there are some neat graffiti or murals which are found on the walls at the parking lot. Sometimes there are concerts held there in a concert space. There are some 204 steps that are here to reach the monument base, making it a terribly difficult climb as one struggles up the steps, huffing and puffing until they ride to the top. Thankfully, even here, there's a superb view over Darklar, and most entrants will lead forwards to the ticket booth and into the monument itself. Prices found online below. I'm trying to slide past y'all this video so it doesn't click on and I lose my darn podcast. Upon entering the current version 2017, the lobby, quote, quote, of the monument has two different presentations. The first deals with African and African diaspora history, covering various leaders of renown such as Lipper Stoner or Toussaint Louverture. Y'all do be murdering words, my mispronouncing, so excuse me, I apologize in advance, and various historically important events such as the slave trade or colonialism. The second, meanwhile, is is a presentation of Gandhi, his life, his work, his message. It may seem strange to have Gandhi presented as a monument about Africa, but then the monument of the African Renaissance tended to be a universalist message, and hence Gandhi fits it well. Writing here is primarily French, but the Gandhi exhibit also provides English duplicates. The tour guides fluent in English or French both exit. The real draw of this trip is afterwards, as one crowds into the elevator to go up to the statue viewing platform. This elevator is exceedingly small, smaller than a flea, just enough to fit 4 people. Crowded into it for space, the elevator rapidly enters upwards until it rises at the top, and the one is just forth to into the crowd of the statue. The crowd is, despite also being relatively small size, an impressive piece of work. A circle, it has windows all around to gaze over Dakar and the sea, and some of these windows are open, providing some need to make sure not to drop your phone while taking pictures. An emergency exit exists, which can open up on 2 stairs leading below, but most of your interest will be directed instead of looking over Dakar. The view of the top is magnificent. There is the child and the woman which one can see directly from the crown, but more importantly is Dakar, which spreads out to the horizon. The airport is to the east, while Dakar itself stretches to the south. The furthest reaches lost into the clouds, or if one wants to be less charitable, small. The ocean stretches out to the horizon, blue and crashing into the rocks. It is a superb view from 150 meters up, looking over this metropolis, which finds itself perched on the furthest western edge of Africa, the monument gesturing like some great god across the seas to the New World, a link among the continents of the world. Following this is the museum, as one descends back to the monument. This has 2 distinct sections. The first is the portraits with Barack Obama and Martin Luther King, and the 4 presidents of Senegal, as well as a drawing of religious import. And the second part is a variety of statues of traditional African commerce or people of regular status at least. There is also a meeting room which has seen the meeting of various African presidents after the construction of the monument. After exiting it is back to the lobby, then out. Your trip is the tallest statue in Africa is over. This is a section of prices listed on our Vicino, which is shown below. If you remember the non-resident adult tariff, which is actually 5,000 CFA, but regardless if I'm correct or not, the prices is while mildly expensive, is not excessive. And it just says the amount. Infant resident, child resident is 5 FCA. The adult resident. So, you know what? I'm just gonna go past that. Well, here's the controversies. It seems that perhaps odd, after saying this and after displaying pictures of statues, that it is practically an impressive piece of work. That in the African Renaissance models is one which is intensely played with controversies. Indeed, it might seem further bizarre, given that it would seem that a few people would object to the stated aims of the monument, celebrating Africa's rebirth and increasing its stability to progress over the last decades, and providing Dakar a world record monument. However, a wide variety of reasons for opposition have been voiced. Construction and cost. One of the biggest battles fought about the monument was its construction, or more precisely, the way in which it was constructed and the monetary aspects therein involved. Monetarily, the statue did not come cheaply, and it took $27 million to build. This doesn't sound too large, but for a country where the average GPD per capita is normally $973, this is quite the sum. And at the same time the statue was being built, Senegal suffered from a host of social problems, most prominent of which was flooding in Dakar. Spending tens of millions of dollars on such a huge statue at the same time seemed like folly to many. This was paid in kind. With the sale of the lands to businessmen, this was little solace. The decision of the president, Abdoulaye Wade, to claim 35% of the revenue from it as a copyright for him, having proposed the idea, was simply the final straw. Indeed, Wade would try to get the statue approved as a UNESCO monument, a proposal which did not come to pass, and would place management of the monument under his daughter Abdullah's foundation. Furthermore, the way in which the statue was constructed was also controversial. The statue was built by North Korean firm Musuems Overseas Project, which builds monumental statue projects, often for dictatorial reigns around the world. Using North Korean structure instead of Africans, yeah, that's a big ass question mark, place something of a hollow message on the idea on African Renaissance and generate unhappiness among the local artist community. It would also lead to aesthetic issues, another point of debate. Appearance. The statue originates from an idea put forth by the Senegalese president Abdoulaye Wade and designed by Senegalese artist Pierre Garbely. Aside from this, little input came from Senegalese artists, which marked an unhappy break from the principle of Bala leadership. Discussion communally before communal action. While originating from Senegalese ideas, the statue style is distinctly socialist realism. There have also been critiques directed towards the facial expressions, which at times have been called cartoonish or un-African. Now, there's a picture on this particular art where we do a close-up, because most of the picture shows it where you're kind of looking upwards. Furthermore, the statue style of a man dragging a woman behind him and lifting a baby forward. I thought like the woman was behind him holding up the baby like a family unit. Attracted critique for feminist groups, the statue expression of extreme Musuems. While not often used in opposition to the statue, its place of construction has its irony. Dakar is an ancient, now hopefully dead volcano, and building a statue to the African Renaissance and to African unity over a buried volcano is an interesting choice of irony. In addition, the choice of the father, wife, and son has controversy. Most African families are not like that. While there was rumors that it represented the president, wife, and his son, with President Abdoulaye Wade grooming his son Kareem Wade as a potential successor, this despite the democratic nature of Senegal. A degree of outrage over such a possibility resurfaced. Religious issues. In addition to aesthetic and construction matters, Islamic and later on Catholic opposition to the monument will become marketed. Islamic opposition was driven by traditional Islamic teachings, which forbid the construction of statues at idolatry. Attempts by the Senegalese president to defend it under the claim that it did not reject statues of Fabry or Van Vollenhoven, important figures in French West Africa, did little to defend his position. Under his Islamic claims were that the statue was improperly modest, a claim which easy to see given the very small amount of clothing on the woman, who has only a short skirt and a bare dress. In a country which is mostly Islamic, although of variety liberal type, a great number of Senegalese women do not cover their hair. This was objectionable. Some 30 inmates representing 18 associates would speak against it in 2009, but by then the course of construction was very advanced. The biggest blow came to the Senegalese president in defending the monument, said that it shouldn't be controversial, saying that religious statues can exist as the Catholics worshipping Jesus' statues, despite Jesus being evidently not divine. Catholic responses were heated and outraged to this dual assault on them and their religion in a community which which had never protested before, would rage a fierce protest in Dakar, despite calls for calm. And a number of more ridiculous claims also got voiced by opposition, such as the monument was replicated with symbols, and that the president was making human sacrifices in the interior. These are, must be presumed, not true, despite the president's membership in a Masonic temple fueling them. Today. Ultimately, of course, these objections did not prevent the monument's construction. It was, in the end, finished. After all this controversy, how is the statue viewed today? The answer might not be surprisingly well, given the complicated history concerning the creation. The statue is there now, and one might as well as make the best of what one has and like it. Furthermore, much of the opposition of the monument came from opposition to President Abdul Wade. Now that he's no longer the president, some of the opposition to the statue has lost its sting. Perhaps it is too early to say the statue is universally adored, but it has shaken some of the greatest stigma that was attached during its construction. That's something else. Now let me see what time it is. Now that wasn't as long. Let me see here. Let me look at my darn thing to make sure I ain't going. Okay, I think I got one more that I could say because it's only 16 something. Okay. I've been going also to biography.com, and this person I'm going to read today is on one of the famous authors of our time, writers of our times, was Langston Hughes, who was born in 1902 and passed away in 1967. Langston Hughes was an African-American writer whose poems and columns of novels and plays made him a leading figure in the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s. Who was Langston Hughes? Langston Hughes published his first poem in 1921. He attended Columbia University but left after 1 year to travel, leading the light to the Harlem Renaissance. Hughes published his first book in 1926. He went to write countless works of poetry, prose, and plays, as well as a popular column for the Chicago Defender. Now let's talk about his early life. James Mercer Langston Hughes was born on February 1st, 1902 in Joplin, Missouri. His parents, James Hughes and Carly Langston, separated as soon as his birth, and his father moved to Mexico. While Hughes' mothers moved around during his youth, Hughes was raised primarily by his maternal grandmother, Mary, until she died in his early teens. From that point, he went on to live with his mother, and they moved to several cities before eventually settling in Cleveland, Ohio. It was during this time that Hughes began to write poetry, and one of his teachers introduced him to the poetry of Carl Sandburg and Walt Whitman, both whom Hughes would later cite as primary influences. Hughes was also a regular contributor to his school's literary magazine and frequently submitted to other poetry magazines, although they would ultimately reject his work. Harlem Renaissance. Hughes graduated from high school in 1920, spent the following year in Mexico with his father. Around this time, Hughes' poem The Negro Speaks Up Withers was published in the Crisis magazine and was highly praised. In 1921, Hughes returned to the United States and enrolled at Columbia University, where he studied briefly. And during the time, he quickly became a part of the Highlandsburg culture movement, what is commonly known as the Harlem Renaissance. But Hughes dropped out of Columbia in 1922 and worked various odd jobs around New York for the following year, before signing on as a steward at a freighter that took him to Africa and Spain. He left the ship in 1924 and lived for a brief time in Paris, where he contributed and developed and published his poetry, poems, and other works. In November 1924, Hughes returned to the United States and worked various jobs. In 1925, he was working as a busboy in the Washington, D.C. hotel restaurant when he met American poet Vachel Lindsay. Hughes showed some of his poems to Lindsay, who was impressed enough to use his connection to promote Hughes' poetry and ultimately bring it to a wider audience. In 1925, Hughes' poem "The Weary Blues" won first prize in the Opportunity magazine literary competition, and Hughes also received a scholarship to attend Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. While studying at Lincoln, Hughes' poetry came to the attention of novelist and critic Carl Van Vincent, who used his connections to help get the Hughes' first book of poetry, "The Weary Blues," published by Norfolk in 1926. The book had popular appeal and established both his poetic style and his commitment to black themes and heritage. Hughes was also among the first to use jazz rhymes and dialect to depict the life of urban blacks in his work. He published the second volume of poetry, "Fine Clothes to the Jew," in 1927. After his graduation from Lincoln in 1929, Hughes published his first novel, "Not Without Laughter." The book was commercially successful enough to convince Hughes that he could make a living as a writer. During the 1930s, Hughes would frequently travel to the United States on lecture tours and also aboard to the Soviet Union, Japan, and Haiti. He would continue to write and publish poetry and prose during this time, and in 1934 he published his first collection of short stories, "The Ways of White Folks." In July of 1936, he published one of his most celebrated poems, "Let America Be America Again," in Esquire, which examined the unrealized hopes and dreams of the country's lower class and disadvantaged, expressing a sense of hope that the American dream will one day arrive. Hughes would later revise and republish "Let America Be America Again" in a small anthology of poems called "A New Song." In 1937, he served as a war correspondent for several American newspapers during the Spanish Civil War. In 1940, Hughes' autobiography, Up to the Age 28, The Big C, was published. Around this time, Hughes began contributing a column to the Chicago Defender, for he created a comic character named Jesse B. Simple, better known as Simple, a black everyday man that Hughes used to further explore urban and working-class black themes and to address racial issues. The columns were highly successful, and Simple would later be the focus of several Hughes books and plays. In the late 1940s, Hughes contributed the lyrics for a Broadway musical titled "Street Scene," which featured music by Kurt Weill. The success of the musical would earn Hughes enough money that he was finally able to buy a house in Harlem. By this time, he also taught creative writing at Atlanta University, today Clark Atlanta University, and was a guest lecturer at the University in Chicago for several months. Over the next 2 decades, Hughes would continue his prolific output. In 1949, he wrote a play that inspired the opera Trouble Island and published yet another anthology of work, "The Poetry of the Negro." In 1951, Hughes published one of his most celebrated poems, "Harlem, What Happens to a Dream Deferred," discussing how the American dream falls short for African Americans. What happened to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it sink like rotten meat, or crust or sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? During the 1950s and 1960s, he published countless other works, including several books in his Simple series, English translation of poetry for Garcia Lorca and Garcia Mantral, and other anthology of his own poetry, and second installment of his autobiography, "I Wonder as I Wonder." Okay, this is also a quick thing that you can also download. Okay, talk about bring this up to sexuality. Literary scholars debated Hughes' sexuality for years. Many claimed the writer was gay, including a number of coded references to male lovers of poems, as did Walt Whitman, a major influence on Hughes. Hughes never married, nor was romantically linked to any of the women in his life, and several of Hughes' friends and travel companions were known to be gay, including Ingram, Gilbert Price, and Fernando Smith. Other biographers have refuted these claims, but because of Hughes' secrecy in the era of homophobia surrounding openly gay men, there is no concrete evidence of Hughes' sexuality, death, and legacy. On May the 22nd, 1967, Hughes died from complications of prostate cancer. A tribute to his poetry and funeral contained little in the way of spoken eulogy, but filled with jazz and blues music. Hughes' ashes were inherited beneath the entrance of the Skirmish Center of Research in Black Culture in Harlem. The inscription marking of the spot features a line from Hughes' poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. It reads, "My soul has grown deep like the withers." I meant to say withers. It sounds like saying withers. Excuse me. Hughes' Harlem's home on East 127th Street received the New York City Landmark status in 1981 and was added to the National Register of Places in 1982. The volumes of his work continue to be published and translated throughout the world. Okay. Alright, offerbiography.com editors. Okay. I was just reading. Was last updated actually. Okay, the original public date was actually April the 2nd of 2014, but it was actually just last updated a couple months ago on January 16, 2020. Okay, publisher A&E Television Networks. And that is it, y'all. Hugs and loves, and I will see you. God bless. Positive vibes, positive manifestations, and I will see y'all in the next a volume of our Kings and Queens Next Door. So stay safe, y'all. Wash your hands. We will stay strong, but we will make it through it. But okay, y'all, let me get out of here. Take care.